custom that he's going to present today. And then I discovered similar setup in Sarah's company in Gameforge and in Yandex, run by Svetlana. It surprised me a lot, and I realized that we found a gap in the market, software gap, which is not covered by existing TMS. So I got really, really excited. I decided we must share it with the world. So 2 months later and a lot of preparations, here we go. Here we have this opportunity to showcase to you enterprise localization middleware built specifically from scratch by the champions here who have assembled. And it is my pleasure to introduce our today's panel to you. So I'll just introduce you, and ladies and gentlemen, please say a few words about yourself and maybe a couple of lines. With us today, you have Rickert Engels, the CEO of Xilio, the hosting company for these webinars. Rickert, hi.
Good afternoon, Konstantin. I'm glad to be here in sunny and dry Holland.
Thank you. Zara, Berter is the best way to pronounce your last name. I'm not very good at German, but perhaps you can correct me. Zara leads the localization department at Gameforge, a major gaming company based out of Germany. Zara?
Yeah, I have the right pronunciation is Beuter, but you don't need to get used to it. It's going to be changed soon.
Beuter, yes, yes. Big news coming up, Zara, right? She shared with us previously that Zara is getting married a few days from now, so it's our privilege to have her here just before the big day on this webinar. So thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Moving on, we have Svetlana Kayushna with us, who leads the localization team at Yandex. And those who do not know Yandex, it's the Russian Google. It's that strong in Russia. It's bigger than Google in Russia. It has all the different services, maps, taxis, food delivery. Svetlana, tell us what else. And it's, I guess, your first webinar that you join with the Western audiences, right?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am very glad to take part in this webinar.
So it's really the first time that you join a webinar in the big localization industry outside of Russia. I know that you lead Hyperbaton, the conference series, which gathered 200 to 300 people sometimes. But really for the outside world, it's the first time, right?
All right. Our conference is founded at 2014, and about 8 years we spread information about documentation and localization in Russia, and we have a large society of such specialists.
Yes, Svetlana is a big localization leader in Russia. It's the chance for you, gentlemen and ladies who are joining us today, to network with her and to add her to your LinkedIn to expand your circle. And finally, Lucio, you lead this gigantic effort to develop the software at Intuit, the company which is behind the financial software QuickBooks. And on your profile, you also say that you're a technical trader. Tell us a couple of words about that. You're on mute.
Yes, I was on mute. Thank you. Thanks, Konstantin. So yes, I've been working for Intuit almost 8 years now. I played 2 different hats. I'm the tech lead in the globalization team, and also I'm the chief globalization architect at Intuit to help lead the globalization capabilities at Intuit to take the not only QuickBooks Online, which is the main product Intuit currently is pushing forward, but also multiple other products like TurboTax, Mint, T-Sheets, etc. And yes, I'm also develop my own software to do technical trading. It's built in Java, and I use multiple pattern findings and algorithms to automate buy and selling on different financial instruments. So I do that on the side.
So software
Yes.
development is not only your work, it's also your hobby.
That's also my hobby, and I learn more about financials as well. That's right.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for this introduction. Let's meet the attendees now. And Purdy, if you might, please share with us the poll to see who is in the room today. While ladies and gentlemen, you are voting, just wanted to say that this is already, Rickard, is it our 7th or 8th webinar? We've collected a fair amount of this events and a lot of...
We typically do one a month, and I think we started in December. So it's probably the 8th webinar now.
Probably the 8th webinar. It's a lot of industry content that we've accumulated in one place. And as we'll take it forward, I think we'll eventually transform it into a club, a European analog of IMAG in Silicon Valley, so that people can network a little bit more, have a forum, discuss, and have a regular set of events. Maybe someone else will host events and we'll just have the platform. So thank you for joining us today. Your presence helps us build the community, and in turn, in the future, we'll be able to provide you with a networking platform so that you can not only consume the content and listen to what people have to say, but also to meet them, network, and make useful connections. Anyway, Purdy, I guess the votes are in. Let's have a look at the count. What do we have here?
We have still some people voting, so we're now at 75%. But
I think it's good enough to take the room temperature.
Okay.
So
well, here goes.
So let's see who are with us today. If you could share the results. So we have a very good mixture. We have vendor side people, LSPs, software developers, a few buy-side localization specialists, some people on the other, which I don't know how to classify, and a few buy-side people. So it's a healthy mix. And in terms of what we should focus on today in our presentations, it's very technical. I am surprised to say that the tech stack and backend technology is the most interesting option for the audience today. It's number one. And the second most popular answer is the general description of your localization program. So the audience wants to get technical, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready? Excellent. All right. By our tradition, Rickard, as the host, goes first. So Rickard, I'm ready with your presentation. Let's begin. And let's open up with your opening statements.
Great, great. So these webinars are usually very interactive. We actually like a lot of questions. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we try to include it in the presentation, but otherwise at the end of the presentation, we certainly include that.
Maybe this time we can have 1 or 2 people go on air and ask their questions on air, specifically if the question is good. Let's try that.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. So a little bit about Xidio. Maybe if you go to the next slide, Konstantin. So just basically a very quick intro. We started in 2004. We are migration experts. Over time, we started to use our migration engine more as an integration engine that can be used for translation, for web migration, and for insights. And translation is relatively new to us. We started our introduction into the industry in 2018. And I still look at myself as an outsider in the industry. And I'm still kind of amazed at the way it works. But that's a little bit of intro of who we are. You can go to next slide. So we have typically served as a migration company the larger clients, and we have excelled always in more complicated environments. So the clients are Philips, KLM, Alitalia, Willis Towers Watson, Moody's, etc. And we have 2 big partnerships with Microsoft and with Drupal. Actually, the Drupal partnership is very, very fresh. The official press release came out today. So that means that right now the partnership is mostly focused on the migration side, but we're of course also already talking about partnering on the translation side to really kind of streamline the translation process from Drupal. So what I'm actually still observing is that what I see a lot, and actually Konstantin also wrote about it today, is that if you take a look at how the translation tech is actually developing over time, I think that not a lot has changed. So if you go to the net, if you click on next. Yeah, so I think that translation tech is actually still designed in a workflow designed for 1995. So it is mostly focused, and I'm not saying that everybody does it, but just from a high level, from a high level overview, I would say that translation tech is focused on kind of automating the existing email process. It is really focusing on getting information as easily as possible available in a cut tool. It is really focusing on automating a project management. So it's really automation of the actual translation process from a project management point of view. And I think that nowadays in 2020, where everything is in the cloud, where everything is API driven, I think that this way to automate things is completely not feasible anymore. And I think that translation tech, I actually gave it a title, Translation Tech Ignores Tech, because translation tech has kind of automated a manual task, but they haven't provided a true technology solution. And so it is kind of an isolated way to solve that. So if you go to next, because I think translation tech is way more than just a TMS. And because of that, because it kind of ignored the other technical aspects of the actual technology solution, what typically happened is that every organization, every LSP, every CAD tool provider, every TMS provider started developing point solutions. So if you go to next slide, so this is of course, next click. This is of course a very famous picture from Gala. So this is what you get. So it is in essence what happens, because there is no real translation tech. It is not considered a tech problem. The end result is this, that people build a point solution because often a point solution is the quickest way to get from A to B. But if you need 3 point solutions, it actually makes you incredibly slow. If you have 5 point solutions, it's a nightmare. If you have 10 point solutions, it's unmanageable. And so if you hear what the attendees are actually having to say, it comes down to the same problem. It comes down to the same problem that the translation tech ignored tech. And because translation tech ignored tech, every enterprise in the audience had to develop their own kind of middleware solution, their own tech stack to make it manageable. Now, so Lockup is very much focused on the middleware and is very much focused on kind of the content management system side of things. And so it is really middleware known for its connectors, but it's the same principle. Middleware, translation tech, proper tech solves point solutions. It's the opposite of a point solution. A point solution is the quickest way to get from A to B if you have one problem. But it's the slowest and most disturbing way if you want to go fast on a continuous basis. And because translation tech ignored the tech, the end result is point solutions. The end result is every enterprise starts to develop their own middleware for file transfers, for instance, or every enterprise starts to develop their own connectors, or every enterprise starts to develop their own middleware. So that is really where we are stepping in as to try to provide tech to translation tech. And of course, as we all know, if you go to the next slide, the importance of translation tech is becoming way more important, because in effectively every single solution nowadays is tech driven. Without tech, there's no solution. Without a CMS, there's no website. Without social media, there's no interaction. So it is all tech driven. If you go to the next. So right now, what you need in any business line process, in any business process, what you need is continuous integration. In any line of business application, what you need is continuous deployment. And absolutely in translation, to translate this to translation, absolutely what you need continuous localization. The average project is 60 words. I mean, solving that in a project management way is just like 1994. Yeah? So you need to add tech to translation tech. And translation tech is way more than a TMS. A TMS, at best, automates the existing manual project management workload. So that is what we are trying to bring to the table. You can go to the next slide. So what is Lockup? Lockup is our product. Welcome Lockup. So this is what we bring. So Lockup is the first headless multilingual content hub that solves this. It is made for continuous integration. It's made for continuous deployment. It's made for continuous localization. Lockup is based on open standards and with open APIs, so it can work with all the TMS and it can work with all the CUT tools. So it's true middleware. We are not a TMS tool. We are content tech, yeah, for localization purposes. And so we can work with a CUT tool, we can work with any TMS tool. So that's what we provide, but we are basically the tech element in your multilingual tech stack. We have a marketplace which is available for free for any LSP or for any technology provider. We launched this in March of this year. I think actually later, we launched it in April of this year. And right now we have 59 LSP and 9 translation tech providers, which are available at the marketplace. What it means, if you're on the marketplace, it means that you can receive content automatically from any enterprise client. And sign up is for free. It also is a way to advertise your services, so that if we sell Lockup to any of these enterprises, the enterprises know that they can already select one of those 66 providers to send their content to. Of course, it works with any LSP, but it's a way, of course, to advertise your services. And so really what it drills down to, what Lockup really offers is, it's a superior automation. It's the freedom to work with a translation agency of choice, not the translation agency that provides a connector, or not the translation agency that somehow has some kind of automation in their pitch deck. And what we offer is a managed service to drastically save costs of the localization itself. Now, that's the quick intro from my side. Let's get over to the experts on the enterprise side.
Thank you, Rickard. Nice explanation. Let's have a look at how the problem of this complexity of multiple input formats, multiple input systems is addressed by existing solutions developed by the experts on the panel. Zara, you're the first. We decided today that ladies would be first, and Lucia is rounding up the panel. So the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody. Shortly about Gameforge. If you don't know Gameforge, then here's the facts. We were founded in 2002, starting out with one single free-to-play online game, which was O-Game. One of you might know, but from then on, built up to 20 products right now. And you can see some of them down there: Ion, Terra, Kingdom Under Fire, Metin 2, and some more like Nostalgia Walker, or still O-Game is one of our oldest games. It turned 18 last year because the company was founded after O-Game was live. So O-Game is already 18 and Gameforge is turning 18.
I think I played Aeon.
Yeah, could be, or one of the others we have there. I think we have a game for every genre you may like. So you can go to the next slide. I hope it works. So slow down a little. So here's exactly the problem we have. Like, we do have a lot of different formats for all the games I just named. Like, first example here is a PHP file, which gives us the local. The next one, please show me the next slide-ish. Just, yeah. This is like some kind of HTML, but also containing text. And the next one gives the next format. Just click. Yeah, that's just XML, which is kind of nice, but not in the format we need. And the next one would be CSV documents or Lua documents. Lua files is the next one, I guess. Now it's an Excel document. See, I'm so confused. It's Excel and then Lua files. This one you can see.
This is correct,
here.
right? We're
Yeah.
now in sync. Okay.
Yeah. Now we are back in sync. And then the last one I want to show you is a tab file, which is kind of a CSV format. So you can see this is just a small, very small choice of what formats we do get. And as you can guess, this is a little complicated. And even, yes, we are working with MemoQ. I hope I'm allowed to say this here. Even MemoQ is able to read most of the formats. It's always looking different for the translators. And as it was mentioned that some of the updates or continuous translation only have 50 words, it's really hard for the translators to always concentrate on new formats. So what we thought about is having everything in the same format. So what we did is, if you go to the next slide, you can see we've chosen, this is kind of whatever, we've chosen one XML format where we do convert all our files into. And then we work with a custom view within MemoQ. So as you can see above, you can see how the XML actually looks like. And if you know MemoQ, you might have seen if you have an XML document, the preview is not nice, not really nice. It's like you can see all the code stuff and then you can see the text and that's it. But to help the translators to get knowledge of what's around this file and what are given data, which are also in the file, which I'm not right now translating, we created our own view just to show the translators the same thing all the time. Like it doesn't matter for them which game we do translate, they do see the information we have in the same format. So they don't need to get used to 20 formats when they are working for us, but just one. And that's what you can see on the downside. There you can see like the key ID, which is in this case new skill 2 effective, which gives some information about what is or where does this text belong to. Then you can see the text you're actually translating. On the right side, you can see ID and content, which is this example is translating from Korean into German. So on the right side, you can see more Korean text, which belongs somehow to the text you're translating right now. Then if this wouldn't be a screenshot, you could click on the blue underlined link, which would lead you to a wiki page where you even get more information and a nice picture to which fits in there. Then you can see like the in-game ID the item has, or in this case, the skill has. So if you would be in-game and using all the GM commands, you could find out how this skill look like, or when the character does this skill, how does it look like? And it's like all the information we have is put in one view for the translator, and they have the same view for all games. So this makes it a lot easier for them, and also on our side to train you freelance translators or internals or whatnot. They just learn how the view looks, and then they can work on all games we have. And in the end, we just put it back into the original format, though the game developers mostly don't know what we are doing. They are just like, okay, it works. And we are like, yes, we are taking your format and doing a nice one out of it, because I mean, there are standards like XLIF, but it seems like developers don't like it and don't use it, and they don't care. They simply don't care. So we started caring for them.
I understand your company has some internal development groups, about 40 of them, right? And then you work with Asian developers and you bring the games to the West, and then the input formats are all wild all over the place.
Yeah, it's not 40, but we have 20, I guess, internal and externally combined. It's not, though we have one development crew per game, and we right now do have 22 games. So you do the math, and then we have some internal tools. So yes, we kind of have 22 different formats we get from our developers.
How long did it take you to develop this platform? Or what kind of effort was behind it?
I mean, it's always new effort when we publish a new game or when developers develop a new game internally. We always start over because even telling them, hey, there is this one format you should use, which would avoid some more effort for us. So depends on the format, but for every game, we do need like 1 or 2 weeks to be completely set with a format conversion into both directions. And we do that once, and then it runs all the time.
And I understand that makes your localization setup very modular, right? If you wanted to change your cattle or TMS or add some system, you could do it easily because you have standardized
Exactly.
input format.
Exactly.
Pretty cool. All
Yeah.
right. Shall I move on with the slides?
This was, yeah, this workflow one was just like, in addition, if someone has questions, like how it actually works. So I can tell you shortly how it is, but then I would be open for questions because I wasn't sure what people wanted to see. So
Ladies and gentlemen listening, let us know what you want to see.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to Zara after the other presentations. So let's cycle back to Svetlana now. All right. Thank you very much, Sarah. Svetlana, the floor is yours. I think the police is coming for me, so be quick before they take me away. I'll mute my microphone.
Okay. I'm very glad to meet you here. Thanks a lot of Konstantin for inviting me. I want to say some words about Yandex. Yandex is a technology company that builds intelligent products and services powered by machine learning. And there are a huge number of different services. Yandex delivers search, information, social and personal services, language technologies, navigation products, and diversity of mobile application for millions of customers across the globe. Documentation and localization department is a center of expertise for our internal development teams. We provide documentation and localization services almost for all of them. Today, I like to share our experience in unifying multiple formats of documentation for a single publishing solution. I'll also touch upon the topic of localization of documents. Next slide, please. What difficulties we face every day? I've divided them into 2 parts: internal requirements and user experience, product requirements. The first point is the different documentation formats we have to use. Yandex produces a huge number of products for users and provides technologies for businesses and technical specialists. Development teams use the diversity of programming languages and environments. For example, one product can have web, Android, and iOS versions for users, and JavaScript API, HTTP API, and software libraries for developers. All the products need user and technical documentation. Next. We have to use various formats to develop documentation. Technical writers produce user and developer guides in data XML format. They generate API and SDK references from code and use native generators for each programming platform: Swagger, Doxygen, AppleDoc, JavaDoc, and others. All of them have native output formats. Some developers write documentation themselves, and lightweight markup languages fit better for their needs. They use Markdown in our case. Next. The second point is a requirement of having common center of localization for most tasks. The third point is hundreds of customers and projects. We work with more than 100 development teams, more than 500 documents, and more than 900 localization projects. Product requirements, and next slide. I'm sorry.
This one, next one. Is this the correct one?
No, previous, please. It's my mistake. And the next part of the problem is product requirements and user experience. First point is the requirement to publish documentation in common corporate design of the documentation on the documentation portals, and provide search and other common features like feedback elements, page switcher, language choosing element, and other. In some cases, we need to unite documents produced in different formats to a common structure, common documentation tree. And the fifth point is the requirement to publish separate documents or even articles as a part of the product with individual design themes. Next slide. We have two independent tasks: support different formats for documentation and localization, and provide flexible single decision for publishing documentation. In such a complex scenario, the content needs to be standardized and prepared before it can go into the automated scenario. We use professional systems, but no ready system can deal with this level of complexity. Two independent tasks need different solutions. We use professional documentation and localization tools, and we have built in-house middleware platforms of documentation and localization. They allow us to expand the basic function of professional systems to our special requirements. Next slide. To satisfy internal requirements, we unify formats and optimize process of documentation and localization. Next slide. We decided to use standard filters to convert different document formats into a united localization format XLIF. We use the extended notation of data, markdown, and adopted format of code comments. That's why we extend standard filters every time when we change input format notation. United XLIF format allows localization engineers and translators to work into a familiar cut tool. Next slide. We continue to work with the diversity of documents formats and expand set of them according to new requirements. Technical writers and developers use familiar professional documentation systems fit to different tasks. We decided to unify the output format. At the first stage, our builder converted all input formats into data XML. XML is easy to convert to XLIF and easy to localize. At that time, we had a publishing system for XML, but we faced two main problems: conversion from simple formats to rich XML format, and permanent necessity to improve converter. It was expensive. Then we analyzed that most of our documentation system have XML HTML output. Customizing HTML is less difficult than adopt XML converter every time. Now our united output format is HTML. The next step was to mix output from different tools in common document when it is necessary. Next slide. Pay attention that we built all language version of documentation through the same workflow. Next slide. To satisfy product requirements, we created a documentation platform called Documentation as a Service. Consists of the following main components. First,
we're a little bit running out of time. Do you think we can accelerate or maybe shorten this a little bit? I know there are quite a few slides still to go.
I'm finishing.
Okay, excellent.
Building point, I mentioned yet. It provides access to open source tools that support different source formats. Storage center, the core component that stores and provides access to previously built documents. And front-end solution provides ready-to-use standard documentation themes, flexible tools for customization, and marketplace with individual themes. Next slide. This is a full scheme, and I would like to demonstrate a couple of examples. Next slide. We mixed the handwritten developer guide and generated API reference in single document. These articles of a document looks the same. Could you guess it yourselves? Next slide. These are ready-use standard documentation themes on different portals, support and legal documents. They are very similar. Next slide. The platform includes a set of interface blocks. Customers could choose what they need on their website and could customize this set for their own portal. And the next slide. Sorry for Russians, this is a non-localized product. And the tasty thing is individual themes. Documentation mimicked the product design and built-in website of a product. And the last one, next slide, please. Many companies in the market build similar in-house middleware platforms for their own needs. Companies have to hire highly qualified specialists to create, develop, and support their platforms. Our conception allows to develop a product that the industry needs. I would be glad to answer your questions. You're welcome to write me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Svetlana. So I understand that you have two middleware platforms, one for localization, which standardizes everything into XLeaf, and the second platform is for documentation, which standardizes everything in HTML. And then you can build anything you want with this. The themes are standardized. Any product team that works with you, they can just take this builder and create a documentation website in minutes, basically.
Yes, in minutes, sometimes several minutes, but we try to develop easy built-in different websites. And because we have many internal customers, some services use this ability to build in documentation into their websites.
Perfect. And how many developer teams do you support?
How
many products?
We support more than 100 development teams, and each of them could produce several variants of their products, as I mentioned before. For example, service like Yandex Maps
It's the same as Google Maps, right?
As Google Maps, yes. It's a several products: web version, Android version, iOS version, and several products for developers. And that's why one developer team produces several products. And if we work with 100 development teams,
it means the several hundred products.
yes, and we work with several hundreds of products.
Thank you very much. Svetlana, this is a very detailed presentation. I hope we matched the requirement for technical, which attendees had today. Thank you very much. This is your first presentation online on the webinar in English. So I salute your bravery, and I guess you get a round of applause from us. Now, Lucio.
Thank you very much.
I see you're ready to go, and the floor is yours. I think you have a lot of presentation experience. So the ladies have taken their turn. Now it's time for you to impress us. I think you have one of the biggest setups, right, with 500 product teams. So we're going to switch.
Yes, at least the way that we have organized our code base for multiple products, you could say we have close to 500 developer teams because of the way the code has been organized, right? Correct. So Intuit, thank you very much, Konstantin. Thank you very much, ladies, for your presentation. Very interesting. Thanks. And so Intuit, for those who don't know, Intuit provides financial products for small businesses and personal finances. Not only that, but also in United States and Canada, we provide a product called TurboTax, so that you can file your taxes using software on the cloud. Our main, so you go to this website, you'll find everything you need to know about Intuit, of course, intuit.com. All right, so I'll start sharing this. Can you see my screen, Konstantin, I guess?
Yes, everything's working perfectly.
Awesome. So, so thank you again for your time, for listening. So why do I start with this diagram? The most important aspect of this diagram right now, it's on the left side. So as the globalization team, we have to provide the capabilities, services, and tools to serve multiple internal partners and provide a very good user experience in the front end. And so many of those come as product UI strings, help, marketing, emails, chatbots, and also legal documents as well. So everything that goes out to our customers into different languages other than US English has to go through this platform. And that's all the different organizations that we work with. Our platform in this particular diagram is sitting at the top. This is what we call single source localization. It's the main vision of this platform. And this is the platform that transforms everything from input to output all the way through. So I will move to, all right, so what about this platform? Our platform has 6 main foundational capabilities in it. At the center of this platform, it's sitting something that we call localization server. And this localization server is connecting or choreographing multiple capabilities as well. Universal content container, data connectors, stream management services, translation content containers, and stackable filters engine. What I want to talk to you about today, it's only about stackable filters engine. Stackable filters engine is our main foundational capability that enables us to take mostly any content that is out there, including source code, UI strings, documentation, marketing pages, and take all that into one single unified file format. So how does it work? So here's a different view of those capabilities being connected to each other. And the one I want to talk about, like I said, is stackable filters engine, sitting right here where I'm hovering my mouse. I'm not gonna go into detail into any other capabilities because of time issues, but this is one of the foundational capabilities. Otherwise, we won't be able to process any of the content that we have here. All right, so how does it work? Just as an example, the input here is just a set of JSON files. Obviously, this becomes more complicated as you add more and more file formats and variables and things like that. And so, but the output ultimately looks very similar across the developer teams. And this is what we provide. We provide the same set of files in the same original format into multiple folder locales. This is a representation only. We can provide outputs in different endpoints, databases, file systems, and repos. All right, stackable filters. As you heard before, and that was the original idea of this presentation webinar, is to present how do we deal with all this. And I can tell you, this is a complex problem. It's not a simple one, but we're working hard for this. And you can have multiple file formats, not only horizontally, but also vertically. Because in one single format, you can have JSON plus HTML plus Java properties plus XML in just one file. That's how complex it can become. And not only that, you can have variables in that, and you can have other kinds of things that you don't want to break for the developers or the product, right? So this is just an example of what we have to deal with, even including multiple platforms at the same time.
And what is your output format for localization? Svetlana has XLIF. Do you use XLIF as well, or different one?
We use our own one, and that I'm gonna get there for sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks for asking. Yes. So here is one representation of that file, and this is coming from a true sample file. I'm just giving you a different view of it, of course, a very summary view, high-level view of it. In one file, you can have JSON, HTML, JavaScript, variables, conditionals, and CSS, all in one single file. And you don't want to break any of this, but you still want to be able to translate and localize it. So we use stackable filters for that. And that will generate what we call a universal content container, which transforms every single one of these into its own atom. That's how we call it. Atom that enables us two things. One, humans can work on it, and two, machines can work on it. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. Thank you for asking, Constantine. We use our own file format right now. Here it is. This is a representation of that UCC file. It's an XML file, which we use to store, but also we use as an interface for humans to work with. And this is the file that travels all the way around in your system to generate localizations and translations. All right. So we use our own file format. Let me go back to your, because I don't want to run out of time here. All right. So when it's done, when everything is done, then it goes back to the stackable filters engine, and we generate exactly the same file that came to us, but with content with localizations and translations in them. I'm not going to go into details about this. I'm going to show you one example how it works very quickly. Constantine, I think I still have time. So
yes, a few minutes more.
All right,
go ahead. It's interesting.
So this is a stack. All right, this is what it looks like in one of our files, and let me show you how it looks like in real life. And here is one. This is one real life file sample that we have to deal with. This is a JSON file, but that's not the interesting part. The interesting part of this is that you have metadata, you have indentations, you have line breaks, and not only that, but you also had to extract metadata to manipulate the behavior of our system. And this is what we have to deal with. And this is what we have to translate. For example, this is one of those. You can see here, this is a horrible way to deal with data. So our system has to find a way to unify it, make it simple, make it beautiful for a localization and translation team to work with without breaking a single thing in this particular string here. And by the way, this is not the only key that we have to translate. It could be anywhere in this file. So you can see here how complex it can become. And I'm sure other companies have to deal with this as well. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my presentation to show you how it gets done. So our Stack Overflow Filters engine receives a stack, which means that we wanna be able to process different file formats in the single file. And this is just at the bottom. I just showing you what it looks like when you go to the code. That's not interesting right now for this conversation. But when you define this stack, what it means is that this is what it means. I'm gonna take an example out of that file that I just showed you to show you how it works. When I apply this filter using a Stack of filters, this is what it does. You can see how it will automatically detect using regular expressions stuff, high-level code in the file that you don't want to touch or translate. So what happens next? It calls our next filter in the stack. That's called the HTML filter. Here's what it looks like. Once the code, once the JSON has been hidden from the machines or the humans, then the HTML filter kicks in automatically in the stack, doing the following: hiding every single thing that is HTML. There it is, it's done. And then automatically our engine will take the next stack and apply the rules in that stack, which means that we are going to start extracting metadata automatically on the fly as well. And you can see some of that metadata in there. We are extracting conditional region, like this is for Brazil, this is for France, and also other kinds of metadata, which then these will become our objects. These are the objects that we are using to process stuff in our platform. And finally, the same stack gets applied on this same content to hide stuff like HTML entities. For example, we don't want to change HTML entities because the software doesn't want that to be changed. Now, this is what you get out of the system when it's done, applying all the filters. You can see now this is clean, understandable, something you can deal with by humans and by machines. Clean text. You can see that now we're not going to break anything while we process this file through our system. Now, what about in the memory? How does it look like in our memory? So internally in our memory, our Stack of filters automatically creates a multi-branch tree. This is what it looks like. So these are different nodes, and each node is a filter. You can see here at the top, that's our fields filter. Our first filter will generate 4 different nodes in this particular example. Our next filter, we generate 6 nodes, and 2 of those nodes will be links. That's how we have programmed our filter to work with. And then the next filter will generate more nodes with other objects in them, with other metadata extracted so that our system can process that metadata to generate the right file and content. And finally, our next filter will generate more nodes to finally get the text. As you can see at the bottom of this tree, that's our text. And our filters and our localization server knows that this at the bottom is pure, clean text. And now we can translate it and localize it. Hey, but by the way, this is an extra add-on that we think it's pretty cool in our system, which is you can use the visitor pattern, all right? The visitor pattern to push functionality to all these nodes. How does it work? So here's a function I'm going to push through these nodes. It's called text transform cast URLs with locales. I know it means nothing to you, but this is what it does. It basically travels our tree to change links automatically for you. We change links that are for specific regions into the right format so that other content links work in different regions around the globe. Also, we can create a functionality that gets pushed through the trees to change text. Text are in our nodes in our tree. Let me show you how it works.
Let's leave a couple of minutes for questions. Do we still have a lot to go through, or can we?
This is one more slide. Yeah.
One more slide. Okay.
Yeah. So this is what it works, and this is what it looks like. Now, finally, how do we generate the file? At the end, once you get this in a tree, you can just start killing branches. That's the US file. that's your Canadian file. It's just an example, but that's how it works internally in our memory so that we can generate the right file format. And finally, I think that is my last slide, Konstantin. I hope that makes sense.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Lucio. So we see here today that 3 different large IT companies in the United States, in not Berlin, in Germany, and in Russia have built very similar platforms to deal with the same challenge. And staying with us here today, you could see different approaches how they built it. Now it's time for questions. While we are setting up to read the audience questions, just a quick question from me as the moderator. How do you deal with context? Can you, with stackable filters or with Yandex platform and GameForge, can you see some of the context as your translators work in cat tools? And in the meanwhile, while you answer, I'll prepare the audience questions.
So in our particular case, we had to build, I'm going to answer quickly. When we push translations to strings to translation, context is kind of difficult because the only thing that we can potentially push to the translation system are comments added by developers in the source code or in the resource bundles. Now, we have built a tool called Magic UI that enables us to edit strings directly in the UI products to change localizations or translations right on the spot. So that helps with the context. That will be my answer.
If for us, it's like the context we get, we give to the translator. Sometimes the ID gives some context, like this is a skill or this is an item name or something like that. So we know kind of where it's going to be shown in the game. So we know, oh, this is an item. So maybe it should be sword and not like a name stuff or something. And as soon as we get that, we try to give it to the translators in our format, like on the right side. They would get all the context we have.
Excellent.
I touch a little localization point, but we have the same problems maybe with context. And when we localize user interface, we tried to make screenshots for every UI element. And sometimes we have text explanation, but context is a really problem. And I really dream about in context localization environment.
Excellent. We have now questions from the audience streaming in, and I think we'll go something like 4 or 5 minutes over time, if this is all right with you. So I'll go with the questions first by Nick Lamson. And Purdy, let's offer Nick the ability to ask these questions on air. Do you think you can enable his microphone so that Nick can ask these questions? He has to.
No, I'm looking. Let me see.
Nick, if you're ready, we're going to give you the chance to speak. If not, just say something in the chat, because this is the first time we do that on air.
Allowed to talk. So if Nick unmutes, he...
If you're ready, Nick, you can ask your questions.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Welcome.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have 2 questions. The first of which, I guess I'll ask the second one first. Is the current industry standard of XLIF sufficient for your needs? And if not, in what way could it be improved to meet your needs?
We'll have a quick poll of the panelists.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Hello, can I talk?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, XLIF, it's good for translation management systems. Our system is more of a system that takes content from one place to another, applies transformations to it. And when we were reviewing the XLIF format, yes, it's nice for TMSs, but it doesn't work well when you try to apply transformations, when you try to hide variables, and when you want to escape things, etc. So for us, having our own file format makes it way easier. It's simpler. and it's cleaner for us.
Sarah.
We are totally on the opposite. I mean, Xlif gives everything we need. And in combination with MemoQ, it's really nice because you can tag variables and stuff, and we are not leaving them out because of different grammatical reasons. Some need the variable at the beginning or at the end or stuff like this, or some even need to adjust it. So for us, the Xlif standard gives everything we need in gaming to handle.
And do you use Xlif 1.2 or Xlif 2.0?
1.2.
Excellent. Svetlana, your platform is Xlif, so I guess you are happy with it, no?
We have many experiments, and we worked with Xlif and worked with JSON. And nowadays we decided that the best variant for us pre-processed different formats, and we have some similar processes like Lucio described. We pre-process different files and filter them from extra information, and then we get Xlif, and for localization we use only Xlif nowadays.
All right, Nick, you can ask your second question, but only to one of the panelists for the sake of time, and choose which one.
You know, I'm just happy with that first question. I'll yield my time to the other participants unless they want to ask my question for me. So I yield.
Thank you very much. Right, so the next question comes from Semir Mihadzic. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Semir, we'll give you the chance to ask it on air. So, Purdy, if you could allow Semir to unmute himself and say a few words. Semir, you can now unmute yourself if you'd like. If not, I'll read your question.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, thanks, Konstantin. Actually, the question was related to Xilio, the pricing, actually. At the Lockup, I went to the website. In the meantime, during his presentation, there was no pricing, which I'm not surprised that there's not. So if he could give us an example of, I don't know, some simple integration like SharePoint and something, and how much would that be charged, and how actually?
Question about money. I think, Rickard, this is up in your department if you'd like to share it on air.
Yeah, I can. So a simple SharePoint integration is around €1,000 a month.
That's exact. Thank you for the answer. Thank you a lot. Yeah, it gives a good idea of the ballpark. Thanks.
Excellent. The next question is also about Xilio. So, Angelo, would you like to speak on air? And Purdy, could you unmute Angelo? I'm just going question by question in order of appearance.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for putting this together. This was great. My question was that everyone's approaches were very interesting, and you guys shared a lot of the back end, which was informative. I was just curious to know, how does Xilio's back end and their approach vary from everyone else's? Did you find, Rickard, that maybe your approach is similar to someone else on here, or completely different, or how do you guys do it?
Yeah, so there are two answers here to the table. So the first answer is that we pass, we don't do it. So we are basically passing on the file format as is to the TMS, and then the TMS handles the formatting. So that is that's in the solution where Lockup is only passing on the content. So it's a content hub, and then the file formatting is happening at the TMS side. And then the integration with the different TMSs, there are several ways. So we have an API, we have hot folder, and we have Tepic. So that is then the way we deal with that. How we deal on the content side actually is that we do have a unified data model in the middle as part of our backend technology. So we follow from a middleware point of view actually the same concept as for the file format, but then more on metadata level to normalize the different content structures. And then in our managed service capacity, we are looking at the same. We're looking at the same, where we try to normalize and basically copy the concept that we have from the unified data model as part of the API structure into the file format structure as well.
Okay,
Perfect. Let's go with 2 more questions for today. And I see that the question from Axel and from Daniel, it's pretty much the same. So Axel, if you'd like to go on air, I think we met each other in Munich last year, and ask a question both for yourself and for Daniel, because it's pretty much very close.
Yes, not just in time, but also on purpose. I was wondering how you deal with the different kind of linguistic capabilities that formats have. I've seen Android XML show up a few times, which has like plural support based on CLDR. If you have getText support, there's a different way of doing plurals based on different rules.
Who would you like to answer your question?
Pardon?
Who would you like to answer your question? Who is it addressed to?
Let's take Lucio.
Yeah. So that way, there's 2 things, right? One is the libraries that you have. We have something called the shell, or we call internally app fabric. Internally, we generate libraries that allows you to do some of those localizations on the fly. Let me give an example. Time format, date format, currency, date addresses, etc. So those really you cannot handle to the localization or the translation system. Those have to be handled dynamically by the product, but this team is in charge of generating using some of those libraries. We don't build it from scratch. We just search for what is out there as a standard. Let me give an example. React and NTL for JavaScript and in our main product QuickBooks. Obviously, other platforms like iOS, Android have their own libraries as well. Java has its own library. So we have something that we call, we have a static analysis operations before everything goes through to identify what is ready to be localized. If you're missing those method calls, we tell you. Now, second, that was the first one. Second, data lakes. How do you extract information from your data lake? So we have to make sure that your data in your database is standardized. And so when you extract that data, we are working on creating a dimension that will give you data ready to be consumed by those libraries, right? In the right format using INTNet standards, right? So those are 2 different efforts. One is the libraries, like I said, you apply those libraries dynamically on the fly as you present the UI. But the other one is how you extract data for your data lake or your databases so that those libraries can be applied to that data. That's how we approach it.
I hope that answered the question. Svetlana, would you like to add anything? Is your approach different?
If I understand right, this question is about how we use plurals in localization, yes?
Yes, is your approach different?
Our approach very similar to Lucio's, and we use special libraries for using plurals. And as for our translators, we use special formats for localization and transform it according to the language. For example, English translators have 4 atoms, 2 plurals for each noun, for example. And other languages could have 6 or 9 atoms to translate. And we prepare translation file before we pre-process this before send to localization.
Thank you. We'll take one last question, and I'd like to give the floor to Igor Afanasyev. He had something to ask to Sarah, and he had some comments for the previous question asker. So Igor, you're the last to ask the question, so make it count. You have the last word.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So first of all, thank you so much for your presentations. Really quick comment on XLIF. XLIF tries to be everything for everyone, and because of that, it sometimes fails because people try to stack in different like statuses, like internal flags and so on, and then you have a standard which is not like fully supported by everyone. So you have to be really careful about like how to import things and use XLIF. Yeah, question to Sarah about file formats. So you mentioned that basically every time you start a new project, you have to deal with new file format presented by developers and create new parsers. And your solution seems to be to present your own localization specific resource file format, but developers don't seem to kind of like buy into that idea, right? I
yes
guess
and no.
like my okay, my hint is that like no developer these days likes XML and XLIF as well. This is considered like very old technology for them, not like really developer friendly. So if you want to make friends with them, try something else. But my point is like, why not try to educate them about best practices for their platforms, and with that, pick not probably the one, but I don't know, like 3 to 4 major file formats, like key value file formats, JSON, YAML, you name it, and then stick with them and make your life easier and be like more like friends with developers.
Okay, maybe this is how Gameforge works and why it doesn't work like this. I can and I do educate all our internal developers, I'm sorry, and they know and they are using XML and XLIF. But as we are a publisher as well, we do get contracts and publishing contracts from games that are already fully developed, like this is a finished game, and then educating them on how to implement the localization is just too late. So it's just like we're getting the games in a status or the project in a status where this is not any question anymore. We have to deal with what we get from them because the game is done, and you can't get a developer to use a completely different technology once they are done. So that's why we needed to find a way to deal with all those different formats. For those where we are in a very early development state, like they are just out of concept or something like this, we do talk to them and tell them what are best practices. But for most games, when we come in as a publisher, it's too late to change something this fundamentally to the game.
Thank you, Sarah. I guess it all comes down to the ability of localization service to provide a really simple developer experience to the product teams. Instead of trying to re-educate them, just deal with whatever they throw at you and make it easy for them. Anyway, this marks the last question, and let's give a round of applause to our panelists from wherever you are in the world. It's been a terrific webinar, and I think we learned a lot. I think we've seen things which are not addressed by existing technology on the market, and this is food for thought